apologize to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump. You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin.
Safer job.
Respondent Major Garrett. Major, I know Bondi was expected to go before the House and testify once again just a couple weeks from now. How much of that is playing into the president's decision to replace her?
It's an excellent question, Jerika. It's unclear, but there was a subpoena pending from the House Oversight Committee about then Attorney General, no longer Attorney General Pam Bondi's handling of the Epstein files and all related matters. That subpoena hung very heavily over what Congress may next want to learn and what the public may, through those inquiries, learn about the Epstein files and the Justice Department handling of it. Quite clearly, this Justice Department has not complied with the law that President Trump signed to release all of the Epstein files. That is a constant point of contention with members of Congress, mostly on the Democratic side, but not entirely. Plenty of Republicans want more information about what's still in the Justice Department's possession of the Epstein files. And now that Pam Bondi is out, she may seek to be removed from that subpoena authority of the House Oversight Committee, meaning she wouldn't have to testify at all. And there are plenty of Americans, Jerika, who watch the Epstein files and who look at this and say, wait a minute, is this a maneuver to keep the administration from having to answer more questions about what the Justice Department has in its possession, what it knows that the public still would like to know more about, but hasn't yet released? Keep your eye on that part of it. But to Nancy's point a moment ago, as Attorney General, Pam Bondi essentially told the president and the country the Justice Department was his. She invited him over to the Justice Department and made a speech basically saying, these lawyers, not in so many words, but by implication, work for you. Compromising in the eyes of many the independence of the Justice Department, and she did try to investigate and indict many of the president's perceived political enemies. In some cases, those cases went forward and fell apart under judicial scrutiny. Some did not even get Jerika past the basic hurdle of an indictment rendered by a grand jury that reviewed the prosecutorial evidence. That is extremely rare, and it speaks to the underlying weaknesses of those cases. So, Pam Bondi tried to do things for the president according to his dictates. That she was unsuccessful did not mean she didn't try. But one thing we can say about this matter, Jerika, there are, even though it's hard to sometimes discern them, limits to the value of loyalty to President Trump, because Pam Bondi was fiercely, aggressively, rhetorically, and every other way loyal to this president, and it still didn't allow her to keep her job.
Major, it wasn't that long ago that the president publicly made a comment on social media saying we cannot delay any longer. It is killing our reputation, our credibility. He called out Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia James, question marks as to why they hadn't been more aggressively pursued. What does that mean moving forward for Todd Blanche, for the president's adversaries? Do you think we can expect to see more of an aggressive approach now?
It means the advocacy is there from the President of the United States, but it doesn't mean, Jerika, the underlying facts of those cases have changed. The law is still the law, and cases can only be brought successfully from a prosecutor's point of view if there's enough evidence to overcome that hurdle, first of an indictment, then reasonable doubt. And many prosecutors, even those loyal and advocates of the president's overall law and order agenda, look at these cases, it's not there. There isn't enough to go forward with it. That doesn't satisfy the president. His advocacy will relentlessly continue. We can be pretty well assured of that, but that doesn't mean the cases can be prosecuted in any more successful way than they have so far.
And even as we look at the screen right now, Major, we see that large banner, the U.S. Department of Justice, Robert F. Kennedy building, but it's Donald Trump's face. When you talk about the independence that this Justice Department is expected to uphold, what do you think the American people make of this? I mean, we've had poll after poll showing a level of discontent right now with the war in Iran, but obviously we have a lot of supporters of President Trump who believe that he is doing the right thing. But when you see a banner like this displayed, it sends a message.
It does send a message. And let's not kid ourselves, Jerika. The political alignment of previous presidents and their selected and confirmed attorney general has pretty well been long-standing. It's not as if there are no political connections between a sitting attorney general and the sitting president of the United States. There long have been. But the Trump administration has made that more blatant, more obvious, rhetorically and otherwise, than any previous occupant, either of the Justice Department as Attorney General or President of the United States. So, one thing that has happened under Pam Bondi's watch is dozens upon dozens, hundreds, approaching more than 1,000 lawyers within the Justice Department have resigned, taken buyouts, or just quit because they do not believe in the fundamental independence of that agency any longer. That's their decision. It's indicative of what they believe has happened under this second Trump administration. It's not a full hollowing out of the Justice Department, but it's weaker than it was before this president came back to power. Now, some of the president's inner circle might say, good riddance. They're bad lawyers. They're not supportive enough of the president. But the president's own track record in defending his policies in the court of law doesn't suggest that the cases they're arguing or the people being sent to argue them are being all that successful.
All right, Major Garrett, thank you so much. I want to turn back to Nancy Cordes at the White House, our chief White House correspondent. I know you've been looking at emails, gathering as much information as this news is breaking. Nancy, what more can you tell us in terms of what you're hearing from Democrats, from Republicans, about the firing of Attorney General Pam Bondi, former Attorney General Pam Bondi?
Right. Well, it certainly fits a pattern in this second term, Jerika, in which the president doesn't outright fire people and say that they were doing a bad job or that he thinks that they were doing a bad job, but rather says that he is going to be assigning them to a job that he thinks is more important for them. It appears he has internalized a criticism that he got quite frequently in his first term when he did fire a number of cabinet members and openly said that they were not doing a great job, and then was asked, well, you know, you said you're a businessman, you choose the best people. Why did you choose all these people that you now think weren't up to the job you assigned them to do? And so this time around, and Pam Bondi is the second or third, depending on how you count, cabinet official to be eased out of her role in this second term, he has chosen to go a different route. So, for example, Mike Waltz, who was briefly his national security advisor at the beginning of his second term, is now the UN ambassador, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio is essentially doing double duty as the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. And then just recently, the president announced that Kristi Noem, the embattled Department of Homeland Security Secretary, would be moving on from her job and taking a role as a special envoy, instead working with South American countries to deal with cartels and other dangers from the South. And now we're just waiting to find out what position has been offered to Pam Bondi, whether she's going to take it, and what that will mean for her role going forward. But I think it's highly unlikely that we'll see a statement from President Trump slamming Pam Bondi because she is someone, as Major mentioned, who has been so loyal to him well before we got into this second term of the President of the United States.
Nancy, as you were speaking, the president just released through Truth Social a comment saying Pam Bondi is a great American patriot, a loyal friend who faithfully served as my attorney general over the past year. Pam did a tremendous job overseeing a massive crackdown in crime across our country, with murders plummeting to their lowest level since the 1900s. We love Pam and will be transitioning to a much needed and important new job in the private sector to be announced at a date in the near future. And our deputy attorney general and a very talented and respected legal mind, Todd Blanche, will step in to serve as acting attorney general. That, again, a statement from President Donald Trump. So just that information coming in. Again, it's live TV, Nancy, but thank you so much for your coverage, Major Garrett. Again, the news today, the 87th Attorney General of the United States now out after just a year. Our coverage will continue on